Hey class, I started to make an alphabet myself with FontStruct since I'm learning with you. And I learned a few things, so I'm just going to share that with you today. I did all my capital letters, and you'll see in my demo, I made some changes from the first time around that you saw it. So I'm able to show the previous letter and the letter after it by going to Menu, View, and I can say adjacent characters, right? And then I can see it's just grayed out here, and I can see the previous and the next letter to give me a better sense of where I'm at, right? I found a lot of little kind of filler pieces to help me kind of round things out. You'll notice, I'm doing everything sort of rounded for this particular font. So I found kind of all these little bridge characters. Some of these are forms, I guess. Some of these are halves. Some of them fill up the whole square of the grid. The ones that I've been using end up in this section on the top. Some of them were experiments that ended up here anyway, but for the most part, it's kind of interesting. So you'll see that I tried to carry the same kind of rules as I went along. There's one place, and you'll see that, so I'm trying to keep the square edge in the upper left, the rounded kind of all on the right as best I can. And as I go through and make another letter, sometimes I go back and make changes. So I found that as I went through, it got more complicated. So I found the N to be a little bit more difficult. So I kind of had to incorporate this little dent in the N. And whoopsie, let me undo, Menu, Edit, Undo, fix what I just did. So if I go back to the M, you'll see that then I went back and added that little dent to the M so that the N and the M kind of feel the same. So everywhere else I'm kind of rounded, but I needed to add that little indent in that particular grid square just to kind of give it a better sense of the letter. The O was pretty easy. The P was good. And then I always found that in fonts, sometimes they break the rules a little bit for the Q. The Q is a special letter. Usually I can decide myself personally if I love a font based on the Q. So this one, I added a little flourish of that little kind of extra little tail here to the Q to kind of give it a little bit of personality. It's the only letter that has that little curly Q, no pun intended. But yeah, so I noticed that I would say the U wasn't too bad. I just kind of turned the N upside down, and you can do that here in modify. You can copy and paste and then modify using a flip, horizontal, or rotate to use something to build another letter off of. And this is the V. I'm not so happy with the V, but I'm letting it go for now until something else hits me, inspiration. The W, I took the M and I flipped it upside down. I really like the X. I feel like the X came out well. The Y, I had to really struggle with to get that stem. So I had to use these blocks that were kind of half a block and then kind of combine them so I could center that stem. The Z, I used the S, flipped it upside down, but then had to kind of do some alterations to it to make it feel a little bit more like a Z. So I haven't done the lowercase yet. So I think for this week, I'm just going to ask you to do the uppercase, and then next week you can work on the lowercase because it takes some time. You have to kind of go through and play with it, and you'll make alterations as you go to kind of figure out, like, how do I make it consistent? How do I make this whole font feel like it's doing what it should, right? Whoopsie. Anyway, undo. So anyway, you get the idea, just so you can see where I'm at. Let's preview the whole font. And if I go up here, I can say new. Well, it's supposed to type without problem, but new. Maybe I need to save. Let's save. Well, it's taking a long time to preview. But anyway, you can see the whole the whole font here. Now, keep in mind, and this is a good way to see if your font characters are consistent. And you'll notice that there's spacing between each letter. So that spacing is called kerning. It's calling it spacing here, but the technical term is kerning. And I can adjust, so I can spread it out or make it tighter, right? So I like it a little tighter than what it was, which is kind of nice. But yeah, and then you can save it, you can download it, and then use it in Illustrator or InDesign or Photoshop, wherever you want it, by installing it into your system. But yeah, so this week, concentrate on the uppercase. I want you to make them really great. And I'll post the homework on where you can put it on the forum, and then we can review them in the forum together, and we can see everybody's uppercase, make some alterations maybe before we go into the lowercase. Anyway, have fun, and I look forward to seeing your designs.